Have you ever gotten yourself into trouble because your expressions gave away what you're really thinking? If so, you may have a pretty good grasp on the importance of nonverbal communication. And if not, this training class will teach you all you need to know about nonverbal communication and how to use it effectively. This is a quote from Peter Drucker. He says, "The most important thing in communication is hearing what isn't said." So I thought that was pretty interesting, so I added it in here. My name is Taylor Phillips. I am a senior communications major at the University of North Georgia. I have taken many a class on nonverbal communication. I also work with uh, kids with autism who more often than not communicate almost solely nonverbally. So this is a topic that I am pretty familiar with and love. So, but yeah, our topic today is going to be nonverbal communication in the workplace. My objective is that by the end of the training session, you guys will be able to accurately define nonverbal communication, give 3 examples of nonverbal communication, and be able to describe 2 pros and cons of nonverbal communication in the workplace. So, yes, let's get started. So, what exactly is nonverbal communication? So, per the APA Dictionary of Psychology, nonverbal communication is the act of conveying information without the use of words. Nonverbal communication occurs through facial expressions, gestures, body language, tone of voice, and other physical indications of mood, attitude, approbation, and so forth, some of which may require knowledge of the culture or subculture to understand. So you should be able to turn to page you should be able to turn to page, I believe it's page 4 of your training manual. And let's see. It is, yes, so this will be page 4 of your training manual. What is nonverbal communication? And then we're going to answer the question based on this definition. Let's brainstorm and write down what we think some common nonverbal communication is. Since this is going to be a recording, you could go ahead and pause and fill in your training manual here. Take about 4 minutes, but you have plenty of time. I would go ahead and pause right now and fill out what you have for your training manual. And then when you unpause, we'll discuss some of the things, just what you could come up with, what you think some common nonverbal communication is. All right, so I'm assuming by now you've unpaused. So some common forms of nonverbal communication are obviously hand gestures, a thumbs up, especially like, in American culture, like a thumbs up is positive, a, thumbs down is negative. What does a wink mean something, a hug means something, a handshake, a firm handshake, a limp handshake, all these different things that we see every day are different forms of nonverbal communication. Going on the definition and talking about cultures and whatnot, is definitely important when it comes to nonverbal communication to have a clear grasp on different cultures, because a smile in the US is seen as positive and happy, but if you smile at someone in Russia, that's a sign of disrespect. And in Asia, smiling at strangers is a sign of embarrassment or just uncomfortable. Like, it's not something you would do with a stranger. So that's good information to know about nonverbal communication. So if you'll turn to page 5 of your training manual, it starts going into what nonverbal communication looks like. So we have facial expressions in this first image, we have body movements and posture, and then we have gestures. We could definitely dissect all those different facial expressions in the picture there, what they could all mean to different people. Same with the body movements and the different gestures. So yeah, super interesting when it comes to what nonverbal communication looks like. Here are some more examples of what nonverbal communication may also look like. Nonverbal communication looks like eye contact, touch, how much space you give someone, that their personal bubble, what that looks like, and even your voice. So obviously, speaking is verbal communication, but your inflection in your voice, your tone, the volume, that gives out nonverbal communication because of you know it's the way you say things and the way thing messages are portrayed by different forms of speaking. So that is also super interesting, something to keep in mind. So this leads us into exercise 1. Normally you take about 8 minutes for this exercise. Definitely pause right here after you've read the directions to fill out this next article. And you're gonna fill this out in on let's see, page 6 of your training manual. You'll fill it out on page 6. But on the following slide, I have some images showing nonverbal communication. You're going to write down your personal interpretation of the behaviors, and then, if possible, you're going to have someone else do the same, and then you guys can compare your answers and see if you guys, came up with different answers of what you thought the picture was portraying. So pause right here, go to the next slide, write it down in your training manual on page 6, and then I'll discuss afterwards what some of the images, like what I interpreted them as. So go ahead and pause right here. Okay, I'm assuming that you've unpaused. Here are my, these are my personal opinions on what I think the different images mean. I think this first one, it looks like he could be embarrassed, or could be sick, or any form of just not feeling great. But someone else may say that it looks like he just won the lottery, and that's the face that you make after you just won the lottery, so you never know. The middle kid looks like he is just fed up with the day, and he looks like he is ready to go home. This guy right here looks like he is just really frustrated and about to just give up on life. This guy is kind of hard. This guy definitely just looks like he's modeling, but he also kind of looks like a jerk. But I don't know that. I'm just getting that from his verbal behaviors. This guy looks like he's yelling, and he looks like he's mad, and he's pretty angry. He has the finger pointed, and he's yelling, he has his mouth open. And then this guy, he's wearing a nice suit and a nice watch and a nice tie, and he looks like a CEO, looks pretty rich, looks like a businessman. But for all I know, he could live in a dumpster. I don't know. But you could compare my answers to your answers and see if you guys came up with anything different. All right. And so now we are going to talk about nonverbal communication at work. On page 6 of your training manual, you're going to write down some nonverbal behaviors you see or have seen in the workplace. And then you're going to answer, how do you perceive your coworkers differently because of these behaviors? I see a lot of nonverbal behaviors every day, especially during like work meetings. People will roll their eyes. People will, sigh. They'll just sometimes you see some kind of really the unprofessional nonverbal behaviors kind of stick out more so than the uh, professional ones. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. All right. Nonverbal communication importance. And all of these definitions and all these are actually from Indeed.com. The job search site. So just a few. I won't. You can pause right here and read all of them, but I'll just read the main ones. Um, but nonverbal communication importance in the workplace is coworkers will often feel valued and appreciated if they know they're being heard. You can help them feel this way by making eye contact while they're speaking. Um, if you move your hands to build expression throughout stories, people can become more engaged in what you're saying. Hand gestures can also express friendliness or appreciation. People have always varied in their comfort levels with touch. Developing your cultural intelligence can be a useful rapport building skill in the workplace. And then keeping your arms relaxed at your sides expresses openness and a willingness to listen, but crossing your arms might indicate that you're closed off. But crossing your arms could also mean that you're cold, and crossing your arms could also mean that you're relaxed. So these are all different, interpretations of body language and nonverbal behaviors. So this is definitely something that is important to, you know, be pretty well versed in because you're going to see it for always. So that moves us on to exercise 2. You guys are actually going to watch this clip from The Office. It's from the sensitivity training episode, and you guys are going to take notes of at least 3 different instances of nonverbal communication. This will be on your training manual, page 8, and you'll fill it out on there. And you guys can, follow the link from your training manual, or you can follow the link through your PowerPoint and we can watch it. You can watch it, but go ahead and do that now. Okay, we're just going to assume that you guys are back from that. We're going to discuss some of the things that we saw in the video. I'll say Jim Halpert always has the best nonverbal. He says a lot. His facial expressions, there were probably 8 different times that Jim said a lot with just his facial expression while Michael was talking. And Toby definitely says a lot with his face, how much he hates Michael. Um, and I'm not sure. I can't remember what the one lady's name is, but she had her arms crossed the entire time and was telling Michael, like, you make fun of us every day. And she said it with her arms crossed, like, displaying that she was angry or, upset about the subject or the topic that they were having to go over in that sensitivity training meeting. So I think that little clip had a lot of nonverbal communication to go over. So yeah. Next, we're going to talk about pros and cons of nonverbal communication in the workplace. And these are pretty important because these are 2 of the things that you guys have to remember for the objective. So you need to remember 2 pros and cons of nonverbal communication. So the pros, it complements your verbal messages by adding emotion and expression. It makes presenting information more attractive through pictures, visuals, and signs. Firm handshakes and eye contact relay confidence to coworkers and bosses. Personal appearance and how you carry yourself can relay dedication and professionalism. Cons to nonverbal communication, it can come off vague due to varying interpretations of behavior among cultures. You can easily miss information due to it being multi-channeled and attempting to keep up with everything. So this is talking about how if you're paying attention to someone's face and facial expressions, you may miss their, hand gestures, or you may miss their other body language, or you may miss other key components of their message because you're too busy focused on their other expressions. Nonverbal communication is continuous, and where verbal communication can end, nonverbal communication is always going and constantly happening. And then messages can be distorted in meetings due to the varying interpretations of nonverbal behaviors. So if your boss is talking to everybody and he has this, lets out a big sigh after the meeting's over, some people may think that he's irritated. Some people may think that he is, just glad that the meeting's over. Or some people may think that, that doesn't mean anything good. And some people may just say, like, hey, we must be tired. You never know. So that's definitely something to take into consideration. And then this is our kind of like this is going to be, we're winding down now, and this is going to be like kind of a reflection time. And so, what are some things that you need to work on or have a hard time with in regard to nonverbal communication in the workplace? Um, this is going to be in your training manual on page 10. Uh, this may be making contact with your boss during meetings, or maybe not being able to control your facial expressions during Zoom calls. Take about 5 minutes to write these issues down on page 10 in that training manual. And then, how can you attempt to improve your nonverbal communication skills? Remember that nonverbal communication takes practice. Uh, so, pause right here, take about 5 minutes to fill this out, and then we'll come back. And when you unpause, we will discuss it. All right, I'm gonna assume that you guys unpaused. Um, some of the things that I definitely struggle with nonverbal communication is just the assumption that everybody picks up on and reads nonverbal communication the way that I do and the way that I see it, even though not everybody has the same cultural background as me. I just assume that everybody thinks, you know, all nonverbal communication is interpreted the same. And I know that that's completely inaccurate, but it's very hard for me sometimes to take myself out of the small, uh, you know, bubble that I live in and put myself in other people's shoes and say like, hey, maybe they didn't interpret that the same way I did. And so that has taken a lot of practice and a lot of, self-reflection to get to that point where I can recognize that mistake in my nonverbal communication uh, journey. So yeah. Um, And then in conclusion, you should now be able to define nonverbal communication, give 3 examples of nonverbal communication and behaviors, and discuss 2 pros and cons of nonverbal communication in the workplace. We've defined nonverbal communication. We've discussed examples of nonverbal communication while also discussing the importance in the workplace. We then discussed many pros and cons of nonverbal communication within the workplace, and we reflected on our own nonverbal behaviors. I encourage you guys to continue learning about this topic. It's something that's extremely important, and you will always have to keep in mind of. So, yeah, there are my references. Thank you guys so much.